Hello, everyone, and good evening. It's Tracy Cromwell here, and I'm your certified integrative nutrition health coach and your trainer, personal trainer. And it's Tough Love Tuesday. So, today I'm really excited to have a very special guest all the way from the East Coast, Carolina. Which one?
Yeah, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Yes, that's right. So Nichole, I want to thank you for staying up late to hang out with me Pacific time. And yes, and so I asked Nichole to come on because part of being a coach, an integrative nutrition health coach, that means that we look at more things than just food and physical fitness, but relationship one aspect that's so important to our health, and our well-being. So Nichole is a relationship expert, and she's the owner of Sustainable Joy Coaching. She received her certification in relationship coaching at the Relationship Coaching Institute in 2019. She has assisted dating and married clients in making their good relationships great, and single women with needs such as healing from past relationships, loneliness, rejection, trust, and forgiveness. She's worked with them so that they can attain their ideal relationship. So Nichole states that in gaining clarity on what women want in their relationships and how it aligns with their vision and life purpose, Nichole provides practical steps for them to maintain lifestyles that allow them to have sustainable joy. I love your coaching name, and welcome, Nichole.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tracy. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy. Yeah, and we had tried this before back in November, and we had horrible tech problems. And so, it took a while for us to be able to reschedule this, but right now I think, right now you want to talk about relationships. I think value of relationships and also forgiveness. So I'm all ears right now.
Yeah, and I think that now is the perfect time to talk about relationships and forgiveness. 2020 was a hard year, and 2021 is not shaping up to be much better. I think we all had, some good and some bad in 2020. And, with 2020 bringing us all so close together, having to spend so much more time together than normal, it caused a lot of greatness for some. It caused some good for some, but then for others, it caused more hardship. Whether it was married couples spending more time together than normal, or singles having to spend more time alone. It can cause, a huge difference in, how we had to change and adapt and do things differently in our lives. And, it has an effect on how we feel and how we react to it. So, and that's why, I wanted to talk about forgiveness, because a lot of things happen that we need to forgive each other for, forgive ourselves for, and not just in the past year, but, if you think about over the course of your life, there's been a lot of things that you've had to forgive others and yourself for.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that's so interesting is it can be hard to give forgiveness to others, very hard to give it to yourself. But, and you being an expert in this area, but, what do you see happening with people who are not able to give forgiveness? I mean, what are some of the challenges that people face when they aren't able to do that?
Yeah. So, when you're not able to forgive, first of all, it doesn't hurt anyone other than you. It causes so much hardship on your body. So, first of all, since we're here with you, Tracy, let's talk about when you're not able to forgive, the things that you tend to gravitate to: food, alcohol, drugs, It's all the negative things when you're not able
Mm-hmm.
to forgive. So that's one thing. Also, a lot of times, if it's another person that you're not able to forgive, most times they've moved on. You're the one
Mm-hmm.
that's holding the grudge and stuck in the unforgiveness. And
Mm-hmm.
so it wears on your health greatly, not even just because of the negative things that you gravitate to, but the stress, wear and tear on your body. So
Yeah.
those are some of the things that you need to be mindful of if you're harboring unforgiveness. And unfortunately, some of us hold that grudge and don't really realize it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And what are your thoughts on this too? When forgiveness is needed, sometimes the journey to find it is really painful. And sometimes people don't want to, it's hard to walk that journey sometimes, Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Forgiveness is a process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everyone forgives at their own pace. And, what we have to understand too is that forgiveness does not necessarily mean reconciliation. It doesn't necessarily mean, when you forgive that person, you have to, put yourself back into that relationship with that person. That's definitely not what we're saying. We're not saying that whatever they did to hurt you means that you have to just you know, forget about it or, excuse what they've done. But what
Mm-hmm.
we're saying is that forgiveness is not for them. The forgiveness is for you. And one thing about that is, if you think about it on a higher scale, God gives us grace. And he gives us forgiveness. Without his forgiveness, none of us would be here. We wouldn't be living the life that we live. And so because he gives us so much forgiveness, we should be willing to forgive others. That's how we get to eternal life. But when you forgive someone else, it is completely, utterly for you, not for that person. And I think when we think about it that way, when we think about it being for us and not for that person, it helps us to start that process of forgiveness.
Yeah. And I think about what you've just said in the context that um, sometimes too, I know with clients I work with and my education that sometimes we don't find ourselves worthy of maybe being healthy, or we don't find ourselves worthy that we deserve a healthy body possibly, or we don't deserve good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing that there could be something back here too in your subconscious that's holding you back from forgiving because you don't find yourself worthy of that.
Yes,
I hope that made sense.
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people feel like that there are some things that they've done that is so horrible that
Mhm.
it cannot be forgiven. I will tell you, there is anything that you could ever do that could not be forgiven. Everything is forgiven. And so what you should not do, first of all, embrace the hurt, whatever it is that
Mhm.
you've done to hurt someone else or hurt yourself, or whatever it is that you feel like, you cannot forgive yourself for. Just know, first, let me say this: the things that you have done were necessary steps that you had to take to get to where you are today. And I know that sounds, when you think about what you've done that you can't forgive yourself for, that may sound crazy, but
Mhm.
it builds your character. It makes you who you are today. So, think
Mhm.
about, I had to go through that to get here. Um, Granted, you could have made other choices, better choices. We all could have made some
Mhm.
other choices, but we've made the choices that we've made. And so now we have to forgive ourselves so we can get to the next step. Um, and so it's okay to say, I feel this way, I'm hurting, but it's not okay to stay stuck there. And a lot of times you can't do that by yourself. You need someone to help you do that. And what you can't do is, talk to all of your friends, talk to your mom, talk to, every person that will listen to your story, because each time you tell your story, you're just reliving that hurt. Anytime you reliving the hurt is not going to help you get over the hurt that you've been through. It's not going to help you with forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, you think about that, embracing the hurt. So, yeah, we can tell ourselves stories again, and I think that's still somewhat of a fear mechanism of not wanting to embrace the hurt. Just for one example, we can use that I'm thinking of too is I was so ashamed and upset with myself because I allowed myself to sway off of my health, and I was very stressed, and I became overweight, and then I was pre-diabetic, and I was like having a hard time at that moment forgiving myself for not appreciating my body more, for not taking care of myself, for not, all these things that I was so upset with myself over. But I realized, though, too, it forced me to look at a lot of stuff that helped me then have just a better life now than even if I hadn't gone through that, made those choices and things like that. I know for me, I wouldn't have learned a significant lesson about myself and forgiveness,
Right.
And yeah. So, but go. Did you have something
about it? Yes. If you had not made those choices and gone through what you went through, you probably would not be the coach that you are today.
Correct.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to help other people through that. So
yeah. And I think that's too what I've seen. Quotes. Your journey is one that when you go through it, then you are able to help others. And who are in similar situations. And I think the other thing, I don't know, I'm just heading down this path is then, of course, we have a lot of shame because we make mistakes, or there's a lot of shame held upon because there's this perception of being perfect or whatever. And right now we're talking about relationships with ourselves is where we're at now. But, what are your thoughts on that? Because no one wants to look dumb, or they don't want to admit their mistakes because they don't want to be criticized or whatever it might be. But what are your thoughts on that for handling that feeling?
So I'll tell you my thoughts on that. It's when you come from under the shame that you are really able to share your stories and help others. And I say that because, you look at me, I'm a relationship coach. And when I started, it took me a long time to be able to say, this is what I am, this is who I am. I've been divorced twice. I was divorced twice before I became a relationship coach. And people will question that. However, I learned a lot during that journey to be able to help others.
Right.
God gave me this purpose for a reason. He allowed me to make those choices and go through that journey for a reason, to be able to help others. And when I came from under that shame and I'm sharing my testimony, that is how I'm able to help others. So it's coming from under that shame, forgiving myself for the things that I've been through. That's when you're really able to break through the unforgiveness for yourself and help others.
Yeah. And I guess that's our gift too, is that we're human.
Right.
And that's also can be our curse, is that we're human.
Definitely a gift and a curse
at the same time.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. So, what One thing I love what you were saying, I'm looking at my notes, is too, I thought about it as you were talking about, you've been married, divorced twice. But I have to say though, if I was wanting to work with you, I would feel that you would really understand me. And I think a big part about working with a coach or somebody is if I know that they've gone through something, that it feels safer, if that makes sense. You feel like you'll be heard because somebody's been there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
Mhm.
And that's part of the reason that I share my story.
Mhm.
I've worked with married couples because I don't want to see them end up in divorce.
Right.
The goal is to save the marriages.
Mhm.
And they say hindsight is 2020. And so you look back over a lot of things, and you can see some things that you've done differently. And that's part of the things that you can share with others to help them.
Mhm. Yep.
But
Yeah.
definitely, the things that you've learned as you've gone through these journeys are the things that you help and share with others to, get them through their trying times. I mean that along
Mhm.
with my education and
Yep.
yeah. So
Yep.
yeah, that's how I connect with my clients.
That's fantastic. Yeah, because I think the reason we go into coaching is we do want to create a safe environment, and maybe making sure people understand that we meet people where they're at, right?
Yes.
You meet people where they're at, and everybody's. It may seem like it's the cookie cutter, but it's not. Everybody's so different. Yeah,
Every
everyone.
story is different. Every relationship is different. Every
Yeah,
couple is different.
yeah,
Every single woman that comes to me is different.
yeah.
Um, we all have our own stories. We all have our own path that we have to chart and walk out. So
Yeah. And that's what I think is so wonderful, though, too, once we realize that we are individuals. And even though we would say we can make a generic statement that, oh, I used to do that too. The reasons behind it are different. Everything is so much more intricate behind each person's reason, for things. And, so let's talk about relationships. We've been talking about relationships with ourselves.
okay.
And so what are your thoughts on, we have our relationship with ourselves, and then that relationship will meld with somebody else.
Right.
Yeah. And so, what are your thoughts? Just first comes to mind about that kind of a thing.
So what comes to mind, like you said, you just melt with someone else, is, when two people get together, one, is two individual people with their own minds coming together. And I think that a lot of times what happens with relationships is that they both have their vision of what they want it to be. And too often people don't, voice that before they get together. A
Yeah.
lot of times it's, we were friends or we met and it just melted together. But I think there needs to be more conversation. And I think, like for singles right now, it's perfect because, you can't really do a whole lot of getting together. So now is the perfect time to have a lot of phone conversations, Zoom dates, things like that, where you can have a lot of conversation and really get to know someone before you actually meet in person and connect. And so, when it comes time to really physically meet, I feel like you really know that person more so than before when you were actually meeting in person, because, so often when you meet in person, things tend to escalate faster.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So actually talking and all of those things. And I had just popped in my mind was that also when having those conversations,
Mhm.
really being authentic who you are, because then I think sometimes we are challenged, especially if we look at generations past.
Mhm.
that we were taught not to. You don't want to really, especially for women. I'm going to say this: we were raised different, and especially in the 50s and 60s. So there's this thing of where you were maybe masking your own opinion, masking your own thoughts because you wanted to fit
Mhm.
so much, and I'm sure some people are still doing that. But like, what are your thoughts on that? If someone's going into these conversations and they're just afraid to be who they really are, um, what are some ideas that you can give them about that? You know,
So, you know, when you're going into it as someone else, eventually the real you has to show up. I mean, so, if you're expecting someone to love you at some point, they have to love who the real you, um, the person that's the real you. And so if you show up as someone else, if you're masking who you really are, and you're right, it happens so often, and then you wonder why they treat you different. It's because you're no longer who you were pretending to be.
Mhm.
Um, I really would like to think that women have evolved,
Me
though,
too.
and are really showing up and being their true authentic selves. I feel like we've, you know, gained so much more confidence, but truly there are some women that just that don't have that confidence, and it's because they don't truly know who they are. And that's part of where we start in the conversation, really understanding who we are, who you are, before you can even begin the rest of the process, because that's important for you to show up authentically.
Absolutely. Love that because it's true. And I think we can be looking so much at other people all the time and taking all this stuff in all the time from everywhere else that we don't hear who we are. We don't, like you said, we don't know who we are. We don't know what's that movie, Runaway Bride, right? Where she didn't even know what kind of eggs she liked. I mean, she always, melded with other people, and guys can do the
Mhm,
same, so
mhm.
knowing that um what is it, if we don't show up as who we truly are, how are we going to ever have the right people around us that
Right,
fit with us? How are we ever going to find the right person, in a relationship? It's having that courage, right,
right.
to
And
show.
that's how you attract your ideal relationship, being who
Mhm.
you are.
Yep.
And that's how you get the sustainable joy. It's
Oh,
being authentic, it's being who you are.
I love that because I want to ask you too, sustainable joy. Tell me how you came up with that name for your practice. I love it. I
So
love that name.
actually for me, sustainable joy comes from it's just what God has given me. And it comes from after the second divorce, I
Mhm.
was in a dark place, depressed, I was down, I didn't know where I was going. And in that time, God showed me who I was in Christ, what my purpose was, and just, so much contentment and, so much peace and joy that now nothing and no one can take from me. And that's where sustainable joy comes from. And that's, when I share my testimony, when I walk these women through these practical steps to get to this joy and peace and contentment and knowing who they are so that they can, just stand firm in who they are and live out their life the way it should be lived. Um, that's how they get their sustainable joy also.
Yeah, that's great. Because it is true, with again, having that peace, that inner peace, I guess, too, of just knowing you're authentically showing up and you're not compromising any
Mhm.
part of you ever.
Right.
And I remember when I was compromising myself a lot, that's when even leading up to when I was pre-diabetic and all that, I always just had this pit in my stomach. And then also it was really interesting. I would be so cautious in what I would say and how I would talk, and I would physically feel tight in my throat because I was silencing myself so much because I didn't want to say anything wrong, or I had this thing in my mind, and I write about in the book, if I show up as myself, that part of your brain is like, no one's going to like me or whatever. It's really interesting. And then you can release that, like you had that experience that you can find your authentic self and let her be her. It was the most incredible experience for me too. So finding that is that exercise. So tell everybody watching, just figuring that out. It stems everywhere in your whole life.
Yeah.
Joy, creativity, your career, your relationships, your finances, all of that, the relationship with your body, so I love that you said that, you start right there with people first,
Yes.
you work with, who are they? And then that's exciting. I'm all excited. So this thing is so great.
The one question I like to ask is, who are you when no one's watching?
Yeah.
Who are you when no one's watching?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and maybe too, you're saying, okay, well, most of the time, great, but there's a couple things I could work on. I think all of us have things that we can work on.
Yes, of course.
But, wondering, I love that. Who are we when no one's watching? Yeah. Yeah. And it can make us step up and step forth as our true selves. Yeah, I love that. So let's see, we set this up before the show, and I can do this. So you have a complimentary, I'm going to be able to do it. I did it. I'm getting so good at this stuff now. You offer a free session.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to offer a free session with anyone who'd love to talk with me, have a freedom within breakthrough session with me. Let's unpack something that's going on within you. If there's unforgiveness, if you want to talk about relationship issues, let's unpack it and get down to what's holding you back.
Yes, I love it. And, I put the banner there, and then we're going to go back after the show. I'll put the links also in the comments as well. And then, so thank you for offering that session. And I really, Nicole's wonderful. So just take her up on it for sure. And then you also, here's her website. So, go hop onto her website and learn more about her, and find sustainable joy for sure. So before we go, what would you say we should all take forward with us into 2021?
Going into 2021, I would say just take with you, matter of fact, not take it with you, but leave all the old behind. Step into 2021 as a brand new person. Leave everything else behind. Start afresh, start new, and see what 2021 has to offer you. What do you want out of 2021? Regardless of what's going on in the world, what's going on around you, life can still be grand. It can still be beautiful. It's time to start now, right now.
Start now. Absolutely. And the other thing, you know what? You get started, and you might trip up a little bit. Just say, okay, and start again. No problem. We got this. I think all of us are pretty bruised from tripping and falling and, all of that, but that's how we learn. And I love that. Step into 2021, as a new person, and we can do that. And let's all find our sustainable joy. How's that sound? Let's all do that. Okay. All right. I knew it was going to happen. It's already 30 minutes. So and you need to go because it's late for you. Okay. Well, hang on, Nichole, just for a minute. I'll close down the broadcast, and then we can chat for a brief minute.
All right. Thank you for having me. Bye, everyone.
Loved having you. Thanks so much, Nichole. And I'll have, how about let's do it again in 3 months, and
okay.
Let's all come back together. Okay. All right. Good night, everybody.